Once the installation has completed, we start with setting up username and email address. Let's open git bash. Let's write here git. Okay, git bash, and then let's zoom in. Okay, so it's more clear. Specific username, or you need to specify your identity so that whenever you commit changes to a repository, it goes with that identity. So let's start git cunfic git config, and then global user.name inside double quotes, write it like this. I have actually already done this, so let's see what happens. Yes, it has been done there. Again, git config, and then we specify the email address. Global user.email, and give your email address. I'm going to use this Gmail because I have an account in GitHub, and those of you who do not have a GitHub account, they can go to github.com and sign up for GitHub account. I'm using my Gmail address, and then that's done. So let's check the config list, git config list, and then you can see here username, and then user email, and then project 1, that's the repository I created earlier. So this is the first thing that you have to do after setting up Git in your local computer, setting up your identity, your name, your username, and then the email address. Let's go to github.com. Let me log out. And then you can see here, sign up for GitHub. You need to pick a username, your email address, and then the password. And then you will sign up for the GitHub account. Use the same email address that you used when setting up Git. So once you have signed up, you have a GitHub profile. So let's see here. Let me log in. Okay. And then you can see here your profile. So you can see here popular repositories, version control, data science, Coursera, etc. And my contributions 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So to get this profile. Other people can know who you are and what you're working on through this profile. They can also know that what kind of projects you're working in, what kind of codes you have written, or what kind of documentation you have prepared. So basically it can also be a showcase for future. On working more and more projects, your profile becomes a portfolio of your work. Okay, so we now have set up email address, and now let's do little more tasks with version control. Go through this git basics, and if you go back to the Moodle pages, once you have set up those email addresses, you can now start this chapter 3 git commands chapter 3. Here we go, and then here you can read about git basics, what it is all about. Most operations only need local files and resources to operate. So once you have had a repository in your local computer, then you do not need an internet connection, only those local files and resources to operate. So entire history of the project is always on your local disk. To check the history of the project, Git does not go out to the server, simply reads it from a local browser. So this also allows you to work remotely, you to work in a local computer, and later on, once you have done changes, you can commit them. Okay, read this on your own. I will just quickly explain 3 states files can reside in Git. So what are those 3 states? Committed, data is safely stored in your local database. Modified, so you have changed, you have made some changes, you have done some additions to your files. but those files are not committed into the database yet. So you have done the changes, but you have not yet committed. Staged or modified file is marked in its current version to go into your next commit snapshot. So you have done some changes and then you have staged it. It means that when you do your next commit, all these changes, these modified files are marked in the current version. Three states of file forms three sections of a Git project: the Git directory, working directory, and the staging area. So read again these slides to understand what is working directory, what is staging area, and then what is the Git directory. So Git directory is the repository. Staging area, it is a file generally contained in a Git directory, stores information about what should go into your next commit. So basically this staging area includes those information, those files that you have modified, and you want those modifications to go in your next commit. And then working directory, it is one version of the project where you do most of those additions, most of those whatever you like to say it. So you basically work on that directory. Files are pulled out of the compressed database in the Git directory, and it is placed in your disk for you to use or modify. So that's a working directory. So basic Git workflow: modify files in a working directory, stage files, adding snapshots to staging area, then perform commit, takes files from staging area into Git directory. So what are the differences between Git and GitHub? GitHub allows you to share your repositories, access other user repositories, store remote copies of your local repositories on GitHub server. So why to use GitHub? The answer is you can share your repositories with other people around the world. You can also allow access to other users' repositories, and you can also have access to their repositories. The remote copies of your local repositories, they are on the GitHub server. So something goes wrong in your local computer, you still have the repository on GitHub server. You don't need GitHub remote on the web to use Git, but what you have to remember is that it is not necessary for you to have a GitHub account to use this Git version control. So if you are happy without using GitHub, then that's fine. But in this particular course, we will be using both Git and GitHub, so that we have a repository also in the GitHub and then also in our local computers. Okay, so creating a GitHub repository. How can you create a GitHub repository? Two methods: starting a repository from scratch. So what you can do is you can make a repository from scratch. Like here, let's go here. So there are 14 repositories in my case, and then on the right hand side you can see here new, and then you give the repository name, for example version control vc 17. Okay, you can give a basic description, and then here public, anyone can see this repository. You can choose who can commit. Private, you can choose who can commit. I think this private comes with yes, the paid version only, so it has to be public, and you can write the description. And then you can see here at the bottom, initialize this repository with a readme. This will let you immediately clone the repository to your computer. Skip this step if you are importing an existing repository. So a readme file basically describes about what the repository is, what it is targeted for, what kind of basically the information about the repo. So maybe you can this one, you can use it, and then you can see here get ignore, you can add this one. So let's, so what's filter ignores, git ignore, and then add a license. So if you want to add the license, what kind of license, for example GNU, and you can leave this as it is, and then create repository. So it's quite simple. So now there is a readme.md which is currently empty. You can write some information about this repository here by clicking this, edit this file, and then start writing it here. Let's get back. And then here is this license that we have selected. Okay, so it goes here. Okay, let's see what is there. Creating a GitHub repository. We have done that GitHub repository. Starting a repo from scratch. Okay, we did it. You can add the license and .git ignore to your repo. We have added only the license. Creating a local copy. Now, to be able to make changes to the repo, you need to create a local copy of this repository on your computer. So we have created a repository in the GitHub, but to be able to make changes to this repository, we need to create a local copy of this repository. So now let's see how we do that. So let's clear it. Okay, so we open the git bash, create a directory on your computer where you will store your copy of the repo. So specify the location where you want the copy of this repository to be created. Let's go to okay, let's do it in the desktop. So let's make a directory by using mkdir command, for example test. Okay, now if you write ls, so you can see here there is this directory test. So now we have created a directory called test where we will create a copy of the repo. So now let's go here. Let's get inside the directory cd test. Okay, so now we are inside that directory. Our working directory is test. Now to initialize a local Git repository in this directory, we need to type in git init init. So this one will initialized empty Git repository in C drive debug cache test/git. So now this has been initialized. Point your local repository at the remote repository you just created on the GitHub server. So let's go to the repository that we have created. Okay, it's here. So on the top, let's get back version C17. So you can see here clone or download. So here when you click on this small icon, this small button here, you can copy this link with Git or check out with SPN version using the web URL. So let's Control C and let's get back. So now we do here git remote add origin origin, and then let's paste that link. Paste it. So git remote add origin and then the link of the repository from the GitHub. So now press enter key. Okay, so this now has been added to our local repo. So let's check. Let's write ls. Okay, test. So let's see, cd. Let's check here. That's why isn't there anything pwd. Okay, C drive users typocase/test. So let's see if it has initialized. We have done that, and then git remote add. Oh, okay, so there's some typo. It should be here. You can use those up arrow keys and down arrow keys to navigate between. Okay, so it should be this git remote add origin and then the address, then press enter key. So this was creating a local repo. Forking is the process of making a copy of another user's repo. So you can make you can fork anyone's repo into your local computer and start working on your own, modify it the way you want, because and this applies to those public repositories which are released as open source or which are using this free version. So let's see here how we can fork another user's repo just by navigating to the desired repository on the GitHub website. Click the fork button. So here you will search, for example, some repo. Let's say tic-tac-toe. Okay, let's go there. Okay, TIC. Let's search only this. Not this repository, but we search the entire repo. Okay, let's search tic-tac-toe, and then here, okay, for example this one, or let's do this one. So if you want to fork this repository, so um, if you want to copy another user's repo and work on top of that repo on your own, you can do that by uh, clicking on the top here, fork, F-O-R-K, fork your own copy of intake tic-tac-toe to your account. So click this button, and then this has been forked, or you can see here it takes few seconds for this forking, and now it is inside your account. Now you can start working on this file. Okay, and you can also clone this one to your local computer. So this is how you fork another user's repo. Clone the repo. Once a repo is forked, to have it locally on your computer, you need to clone the repo. So now if you want to have it locally in your computer, then you need to clone it. So you write here git, let's make another directory, cd dot okay, mkdir new repo, and then cd new repo once, and this will help. So let's do this git init. Okay, we have done that. So now git clone, and then let's get back. Let's not use this one. Let's use this, for example, repositories here. For example, this one, it's empty. And let's get this. We have already forked it, so let's clone our download and then copy this link. Again, the same process. And paste it here, git clone, and then the URL. This will clone the repo into your current directory. So cloning into past tutorial. Okay, now this has been cloned. So let's check here, ls. Why it's not listing? Okay, let's see dir. Okay, you can see there those files. We know how to fork, and then we have also learned to clone the repository. Let's see desktop. Let's see where those repositories are. Is it here? No. This PC and the C drive users CFKC, and let's see pass history git config new repo, and then you can see here past tutorial, and you can see here. Also continue to check that slides where there is more information about getting a Git repository, cloning an existing repository with examples, and now we will learn to record these changes to the repository. So after making changes, a snapshot of those should be committed into a repository each time the project reaches a state you want to record. So let's go to this one. So now we have created a file and we start working on it. Here we go, we do different changes, we save it, we maybe create again another file, new Microsoft Word document, okay, and documentation, for example, and so on. So here you just keep working like you would normally work on a local folder in your computer, and once you feel like okay, I'm done, or maybe this should be now these changes should be recorded into your repository, you need to follow the following steps. So each file in working directory can have two states. Tracked files from the last snapshot can be modified, unmodified, or stressed. Untracked other files in the working directory which were not in your last snapshot and not in your staging area. On cloning repository for the first time, all files are tracked and unmodified. So when we clone the repository, all files are tracked and they are unmodified. On modifying them, Git sees them as modified. You then stage these modified files and then commit all your stage changes. And that's the repetitive cycle. So you keep on doing, you make changes, you stage them, and then you commit those changes. Okay, checking the status of your file. So let's check the status of our file. Let's do this task from the beginning. So let's cd dot dot, so that you know. Let me clear it everything. Let's make a new repository. So let's write here my mkdir project 2. Okay, and then I get inside this project 2 cd project 2. Okay, I'm inside this project 2 directory, and now I start with cloning git clone and then the URL. So let's clone this version C17, clone or download, copy it from here and paste it. Okay, so this has been cloned, and project 2, let's see here, ls, so version 17, you can see that. So let's get inside this directory. Okay, and then there are 2 files. So now you can come back to this one, and here we have this project 2 version 17, and now let's create some new files here. For example, Microsoft documentation, just some random files, new, and then let's put this text document, for example, index.php, and maybe some C++ codes or whatever. It can be whatever. So let's write here mycode.cpp. Okay. So now we have done something with this version control, or not the version control, but with this repository. So we have created few files and so on. So now let's get here. So we start with checking the status. So git status, let's do it, STATUS. So now you can see here, git status on branch master. Your branch is up to date with origin master. So the origin master that exists in GitHub. And then you can see here on-tracked files. So these files are on-tracked. So if you want to track these files, so you can decide which files to track all those changes, and you can also skip those for certain files. Use git add to include in what will be committed. On-tracked files, nothing added to commit, but untracked files present. So as of now, we know there are 3 different on-tracked files, and nothing is added to the commit, but there are some untracked files. So now let's add these new files to the project directory. How do we do that? Let's see here. Let's write here. So git and then add and just the file name, documentation.docx. Okay, we want to track this one, and we also want to track, for example, okay, index.php.txt, git add, mycode.afsend. So we want to track all these files. That's why we have added them. Once you have added those files that you want to track, after adding the file, the status change. So now if you change git status, and now you can see here your branch is up to date with the origin master, changes to be committed. So these are the changes that are to be committed. New file documentation.docx, index.php.txt, mycode.cpp.txt. So after adding the files, the status changes to tracking new files. Git add command is used to tracking a new file, to begin tracking a new file that we have done, staging modified files. Now let's change a file that is already being tracked. So let's make some changes. Let's go here. For example, let's use this, okay, this one. So here we go. So we have made some changes, we have added some text, or we have made some modifications, let's say it that way. Okay, and now if you go back and then right here git status. Git status. Now you can see here your branch is up to date. There are 3 different files that will be tracked. Changes to be committed, changes not staged for commit. So use git add to update what will be committed. Modified index.php.txt. So new file, new txt. Now again we do that, git add, so index.php.txt. Then let's check the status, git status, and you can see that those changes are now they will be included in our next commit. Okay, git add new text, git check the status, git status. You can also check those slides again, and there you find to get more simplified output, type the following command. Okay, let's go there. There will be class of files such as log files. Okay, ignoring files. So there can be certain files that you want to ignore tracking, such as log files or files produced by the build system, which you do not want Git to automatically add or even show you as being untracked. So if there are certain files in your repository that are maybe log files or something that is generated by some compilers, and you do not want to track those files, you do not want to automatically or even show you as being on track. To ignore these files, you can create a file listing patterns to match them name.gitignore. So if you remember at the time of creating a repository in GitHub, when we selected this open source license, there is this .gitignore that you can select. And you can select that, for example, if you're doing a C++ code or whatever else, you can select that is specific and it will ignore all those files which are created in your local repository. Okay, let's get back here. Cat command used to display copy, combining and examples of ignoring files. So you can ignore those files. .gitignore. GitHub maintains a fairly comprehensive list of good .gitignore file examples for dozens of projects and languages. So you can add that ignore files that is available in GitHub. Now let's view staged and unstaged changes. So git diff command is used to know what exactly you have changed. Git status only mentions which were changed. So git status mentions what's changed, whereas if you want to know what exactly has been changed, then you can use this command called git diff. So let's do here git diff. Okay, so let's see here, git status only mentions git diff, and then it should. Okay, let's first make some changes. We have already committed those, so let's make here some changes. Okay, and then let's save it, and here git status, okay, modified, and git diff. So now you can see here what has been changed with this command git diff. So to see what have been changed but not yet staged, git diff. To see what have been changed and will go into your next commit. So git diff staged stage. So what are those? That's okay. Let's see here. Staged. Okay, now you can see here what are changed. To see what have been changed and then go into your next commit. Now, so far you have learned to clone a repository and then and then create new files or work on those existing files, modify them, and stage those files, view staged and unstaged changes, to ignore files by using GitHub git ignore files, and also to check the status of your modified files, staging your modified files, and then adding to track new files that has been created. So you now need to commit your changes. Once everything is staged, next step is to commit changes. So here, let's check the status one more time, status. Okay, so you can see there index.php.txt was modified. So let's add this. Let's use this one. git add index.php.txt. Okay, let's check the git status. Okay, so everything is ready, your branch is up to date, and the changes to be committed you can see there. And now once everything is staged, next step will be to commit changes. Remember to run git add on files. So you might have noticed that every time I have done some changes, I have run this git add. Or basically, once you are ready with your file, then you just need to use this git add. So remember to run git add on files that have been created or modified, as anything that is still unstaged won't go into this commit. So if something is unstaged, if you have not done this git add command to a file that has been modified, they won't go into this commit, but later on in the next commit they can still go. So now let's do it. Git commit -m and then some message. Okay, add any message changes done. You can add some relevant message, but I did write this just changes done. I will write this changes done. So message is a description of what you did. This updates your local repo, not the remote repo on GitHub. So again, this is just updating the local repo. So let's do this. Okay, this changes has been done. This has been committed. And remember that this updates your local repo, not the remote repo on the GitHub. So let's go here. Let's check it. There is our remote. So now you can see here, nothing has happened, right? So those new files that we have created are still only in our local repository. So let's get back. In order to push these changes, in order to push these local commits, since local commits are now saved, you have saved those local commits, you would like to update on the remote GitHub. So you can only update to the remote GitHub that you own. So provide your GitHub username and password. So let's write here git and then push. So this will now update the remote repository on GitHub. So git push. I need to type in the username. Okay, username. Okay, and then the password. Okay. Okay, so now you can see here counting objects for done, delta compression using up to 4 threads, compressing objects, and so on. So now if we go and refresh this repository here, you can see that all these files are here. Now if we make some modifications, let's go back. Documentation.docx. Here we go, some changes again. Okay, save it, close it. Let's close this also, we don't need it anymore. And then let's go back to git pass, let's clear it. So now if you see git status, you can see that one of these files has been modified. So let's use it, git add documentation.docx. Now let's check the status on your branch is up to date. Okay, now we will commit it. So we need to commit it first into our local repo, and then let's see here, git push, git commit. So new changes done, okay, and then press it. Okay, what file changed? So now after you have committed those changes to your local repository, we are good to go. We can update our remote repo also. So we again write git, let's git and git push. Now you don't need to type your username and password again. Okay, here we go. This is done. Let's get back. Let's refresh it here. And then if you look at this documentation docx, view raw. So it has been downloaded. So let's open this. And it should include those new changes. Yes, here it goes. So with this video tutorial, you should be able to install Git, set up a GitHub account, and then create a repository, fork a repository, clone a repository, make some changes, work on your repositories, commit it into your local repository, and then update it into the remote repository. So at this point, this should be enough for you to get started. So you are good to do some exercises that are available in Moodle. Please also check those slides in that are available in Moodle: version control chapter 1, version control chapter 2, git commands chapter 3, and then here let me open this so it's available to all of you. So all these 4 chapters are available. So here's also a git cheat sheet. Install Git, GitHub for Windows, GitHub for Mac, making changes, group changes, creating repositories, and then other useful commands that you need to use when working with Git, version control, and GitHub. Okay, so that is all about a brief tutorial on using Git version control and GitHub alongside GitHub. I will open this version control assignment 1. Try to do this assignment. If you are not able to do it, I can help you once I'm back. Thank you very much.